Hello, I'm Beth Britton. I support Dementia Community with their communications work. Welcome and thank you for joining us for our second June webinar. Before we get on to the topic for today, I wanted to briefly explain a bit more about Dementia Community. Dementia Community is a charitable community benefit society, a membership cooperative that provides learning and networking opportunities for the dementia care community. Dementia Community's core purpose is to connect and empower the dementia care community. Dementia Community's vision is of a world where all people in the dementia care community feel connected, informed, empowered and purposeful, and are actively engaged in co-producing changes that improve everyone's experience of dementia in care and in wider society. To sum up, if you're aware of the work of the National Dementia Action Alliance before it disbanded, we hope that Dementia Community is a replacement for the NDAA. Community members own a £1 share in Dementia Community and membership is open to everyone. So if you aren't already a member, do join us. There are both benefits and opportunities for all of our members. My colleague Beth Lang has popped a link in the chat that will take you to our membership page. You can also scan the QR code on your screen. If you're having any difficulties with either of these options, do message Beth or myself and we will aim to help you. So on to the topic of today's webinar. Our topic today is digital life stories. I will introduce you to our fabulous speakers shortly, but first some brief housekeeping. We are recording this webinar, so if you don't want your face on the recording, please turn your camera off. Please use the chat for your questions. We will have a Q&A and discussion after the presentation, and we will be keeping an eye on the chat during the presentation as well as afterwards. We hope for some live participation too, so if you would like to ask your question of our presenters at the end of their presentation, then please do let us know by raising your hand. Afterwards, Beth Lang will email you with the slides. The recording will also go onto our YouTube channel, Journal of Dementia Care, so do look out for that. We will also ask you to complete a feedback form after this webinar. We'd be really grateful if you could provide that feedback for us. So let's get started. Our speakers for today are Dr. Natasha Lord, clinical psychologist who used to work for Worcestershire and Herefordshire Health and Care NHS Trust, and Dr. Andy Ashley, a consultant clinical psychologist at Worcestershire and Hertfordshire Health and Care NHS Trust, and with apologies from their colleague Aaron Smith, who sadly can't be with us today. Absolute joy to have you both with us. Really looking forward to your presentation. Over to you.
Thanks very much, Beth. Afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see a few faces before I share my screen. Beth, can you see that?
Absolutely, I can. Yeah, it looks great.
Lovely, thank you. As I just mentioned before the webinar, sometimes when I get really passionate, I can go a bit quickly. I can't necessarily see the chat now, so just let me know if you want me to slow down in any way. So welcome everybody. I know I've just been introduced, but I'm Tash Lord, and I was one of the co-leads for the Worcester Life Stories project. Andy?
Oh, hi there. Yes, and nice to meet you all. And my name's Andy Ashley. I'm a consultant psychologist, as was introduced. And it's actually Herefordshire, not Hertfordshire, which is a slightly different locality. But I'm really pleased to come along and talk a little bit about this work. I must say, though, just to articulate, although I'm the lead for this part of the service, Tash and Aaron were very instrumental in leading this. So I guess I've been someone trying to support from the wings, but it's a great piece of work, and I can tell you my involvement as part of it.
Teamwork. So just in terms of the aim of the webinar, we were going to give a brief overview of Life Story work, tell you a little bit about how we developed the platform. We thought it'd be really great to hear from Ron and Maggie, who I'll tell you a little bit more about. Then about how we've gone about implementing Life Story work on a ward for people with dementia, and then what next for Life Stories within Herefordshire and Worcestershire. And then, as Beth was saying, time for questions. We really the more interactive, the better. It'd be great to have any questions, any thoughts, feedback. Yeah, anything that you want to say would be fantastic. Thank you. Over to you, Andy.
Thanks there, Tash. It looks, I don't know, my screen's got a little black bit over Tom Kitwood's face, so I don't know whether that's just my screen, but
yeah, I was going to say to you, Tash, yeah, it's gone now.
No,
oh,
sorry.
there it's gone. So no, that's fine. I guess starting points, and if we think about who's on this call today, this will probably be very familiar to you. So Tom Kitwood was a professor at Bradford University who was really quite instrumental in changing the way we thought about dementia. And you might also be aware of what's this equation now of you on the left-hand side. Again, you're probably quite familiar with that. For those who aren't, I guess it was his idea of trying to understand the holistic impact of a range of different things on people with dementia. There has been in the past previously a more of a focus on the impairment or deficits people have had, and what he described here as neurological impairment, instead of looking at a whole wide range of factors potentially impacting on how someone with dementia lives. So that includes personality, biography, health, neurological impairment, and what he described as social psychology, which is really our interaction with people. And I guess the lovely thing about life story work, and I assume partly I'm preaching to the converted, is it not only supports people directly in terms of working in terms of that biography, but it changes the relationships people have with that individual with dementia as well. So there's this impact not only on biography, but social psychology. So, and anyone who's ever done that work or done this work, it is quite enjoyable and pleasurable. One of the other things that was particularly helpful about biography is as people's memory declines, they often feel more insecure and there's a loss of identity. And how do we help maintain that identity? But also the biography might say more about our lives, what losses we've had, why we might be feeling more insecure. And so there's something about that connection that can be really important in terms of understanding people's histories. And as I said, there's something about impacting on the individual directly, but also to help those working with them understand them better. And I was thinking about this before, I think it was yesterday, we're thinking about the slides and thinking we all have this. The more we know someone in our workplace, the better a relationship in general. I know it's a bit of a generalization, but in general, if we know something more about someone, we tend to get on with them more and we know something more about them. So it's quite basic, but it's also really, really important.
Yeah, it is.
Could you just go on to the next slide there, Tash? So again, you might be familiar with a whole range of benefits people get from reminiscence or life story work. I won't go through them all, but I found this little photograph on the website that I felt this wasn't anything particular, but it kind of reminded me when I was a kid, and I've got a photo outside my house with me on a bicycle with a motorbike helmet on when I was about 9 or 10. So it just took me back a little bit. But there's something, I think for people with dementia, there's this theory, isn't there, that seems to hold true, that I think it's called the Ribot's law, that as people's long-term memory is more preserved and tends to be more consolidated in our brains. And so when we develop dementia, that tends to or stay for longest. And that's really important in life stories work because it gives people an opportunity still. They're not in a place where they're struggling to articulate what happened in the morning. They're in a place which is more familiar, that they're more coherent around. And even when that declines, there's still fragments of memory that you can connect to. And there's some idea that recognition of those pieces are held for longer. So there's something around the work which can be hugely positive in that way. There's something about re-experiencing the feel of happier times. And I think we all have this. I know if you talk to someone and they share something quite positive about their lives, we often feel those feelings too. And there's actually that, people might say, oh, that's being an empathic person. but apparently it triggers similar neurons in our brains, mirror neurons they're called, and as the places that are triggered in the person who has that experience. So we feel their thoughts or their feelings because it triggers same places in our minds. So there's something really important about that. There's something also, it's not just around dementia, and this is something I'll come on into later, is that life stories can be used in a range of different areas. One of the areas I do work is within palliative care, and we're exploring ways that we can use it for people who have lost ability to walk, they're bedbound, but there's a real opportunity to review their lives, to think about what, the things that have gone well, but also their regrets, but also thinking about their family history and cultural history. So there's something really powerful about that. And I guess also these three things about communication, participation in a stimulating activity, and opportunities for creativity. If you think about a lot of dementia interventions, often there's something about, if you think about things like cognitive stimulation therapy, or within Hereford and Worcestershire, there's a really good piece of work done by Dawn Brooker and colleagues at Worcester Association, and they're looking at a project called Namaste. And a lot of these are around how you increase stimulation and interaction with people who have dementia. So, I think about what happened during COVID with a sense of isolation, a sense of loneliness, and that not only led to low mood for many people, but people with dementia, it led to a decline in their cognitive abilities. So this provides, life stories, and the platform provides a real opportunity to interact with people, which has multiple benefits. Sorry, it feels like I'm on a bit of a soapbox there, Tasha.
Not at all. Not for me.
Yeah. So what other things? Care workers often report warmer feelings for people they care for with knowledge of their life histories. And that's actually in some of the research we did in a small pilot at Meadow Ward, one of our dementia wards, similar things came out. There's also something about, does that help put current challenges in perspective? Is there something about helping people who have problems with speech and language, with dysphasia, as well as cognitive impairment, in being able to articulate their thoughts in a way and having a kind of structure that helps them, which isn't purely verbal? And I think life stories work in general for people with dementia can use a whole range of different things, from sense to pictures to drawings. And this is another opportunity to do that. It could also be helpful, and certainly in my clinical work, I'd meet lots of people where the transition from different environments, into hospital, into care homes, is really quite problematic, and quite a lot of sense of loss and confusion. And is there a real opportunity here? And I think this is something I'll be interested in how other people use this, but I'm interested in exploring that transition and whether this is something that helps people come to terms with that. And ultimately, it conveys a powerful message of value, that we're giving time, and thinking about this with people. So I think that's quite a powerful message in a group of people who can often feel their needs are neglected. Tash, that's right. So good practice. I think there's something, and again, these are quite, there's something about how we use this, in a process which keeps people engaged, particularly if they don't have capacity. How can someone still retain some ownership of their stories? So is this a way whereby we can still check out with people as we're going that this is something they agree with or understand? And is there a process of assent as well as consent as well? So you're as you go, you're checking out whether this is something someone wants to do. The other thing that often comes up in questions is about strong feelings. And if you think about what to do if this makes someone upset, and I would be thinking, well, in our lives, and if you spent a moment thinking back about key moments in your lives, some of them are emotional and upsetting. And I think that's okay. And so I'd be just thinking about that as you do this, that this isn't just going to be people talking about, a lot of things have mixed motions, and the idea that we live our lives just full of happiness is not really true. So there's something about being prepared for that. It's quite unlikely, and I don't recall it's a shame Aaron's not here from his experience, but I don't recall many situations where people particularly are upset by the work, and it's unlikely that it would impact recalling a traumatic memory that leads to a lasting disturbance, and that's come out in other research. However, if that did happen, think about what you would do with it. I think that was one of the bits, but if people want to pick up those conversations later, I'm happy to do so. Adopting the principles of person-centered care in your approach, and I think we would all want to do that, is listening a bit. This is a sort of, can be quite a nice process to do with people, being creative, thinking a little bit about the rapport, and seeing and hearing and being present. And there isn't one truth to this. Sometimes people may come up with a slightly different version of what we talked about before, and that's okay. If you think memory isn't one truth either, we all recollect the similar event differently from the past. So, just some thoughts about some good practice. I don't know if you have anything else to add around that, Tash, around good practice.
No, I know, as you were speaking, Andy, can people see me, by the way? Because I can only see the screen.
Yeah, Tash, I can see you on the right-hand side of my screen.
Lovely, thanks. So, sorry all, I'm talking to the screen, so I can't check in to make sure I'm on track. So Beth, I'll sometimes ask you. In terms of good practice, I can hear Polly Kaiser, who wrote a book on life story work, saying, Andy, just what you'd said about no one truth, with that just not getting caught up on, was it a red dress or a yellow dress, and we may remember differently, it's what it brings back. And then that other bit that you were saying in terms of potentially life story work causing distress. Within the pilot that we did, there were 3 people that initially experienced distress, and the psychologist at the time withdrew. Did try again later with the same people, and it was okay. So there's something about timing for all of us, really, on all sorts of activities. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Sorry, I can't even check in on nodding.
No,
So,
that's good. Did anyone have any bits of questions about the background before we go on?
Tash, if you want to stop sharing your screen so you can see more of everybody and then come back to your screen share, you can. It's up to you.
No, that's okay. I realise it's that's not fair on other people. But if I look like I'm tilting my head, I'm trying to listen intently to if I can hear anything that people are saying. But was there anything on the chat from what Andy was saying?
There isn't anything at the moment. If anybody would like to add anything, do feel free to do so.
Thanks. Andy, you made me smile because it made me think of you and I and all relationships when you were just saying about the more we know someone, the better our relationships are, and just the importance of that. And when we might feel more insecure, which I think that can be for everyone. So I guess that brings me on to our digital life story platform. And just hearing, I guess, about the benefits of life story. Through the time that I'm talking, I may share some stories of my own. So I thought I'd start with why did we develop digital life stories? I used to work as a psychologist for the Black Country, and when I was there, they used to have a historian that would come onto the ward and would talk. So sorry, I worked as a psychologist for a ward for people with dementia and people with mental health needs in Wolverhampton. And this historian would come and he would bring photos of Wolverhampton and stories, and people would come together in a group. And for many people, it was an opportunity not to talk about difficulties, not to think about why they were in hospital. It was moments of connection and belonging, and some of the things that Andy was saying about that value of being able to share and that group sharing. When I moved to Worcester originally, I couldn't find anything like that. And my friend was, my friend is an archaeologist. And I phoned her up, and I'll be honest, I was on the beg, borrow and steal, so I wanted it for free. I said, we used to have this thing where a historian would come, and it'd be an opportunity just to come together and to share connections and knowledge of, about our heritage and our place. So, can you help me? And she said to me, well, do you know what? I've been trying in Bristol. They've got this platform called Know Your Place. Know Your Place is a website which has a map of the city. So Bristol, there's now one of Worcester. And what you can do is you can click into that map and potentially go into streets and then pull up images. So I was saying, I went to Elgar High School in Worcester. Could I go on to Plantation Drive and pull that image up? And she's like, yeah. Or you could type in schools, and it would pull up this image. I was like, oh, that's amazing. In my work, on working on an inpatient ward, quite often people with dementia come into hospital. Things may have got difficult at home. Potentially people are struggling, and the person may be in distress and acting in ways where people say, I can't understand what's happening. And one of the things that's really important in that work is about understanding what's happened to someone. So Andy, you spoke earlier about what's our losses, our insecurities. And I remember working with a lady who was Polish, and when she was on the ward, she would often try and be kind to the staff. And when we learnt about her life, what we learnt is that she was in a war camp, and one of the ways that she survived was by trying to be kind to people so that she could try and not be hurt. That was really important in terms of knowing about who she was. And then I was thinking, Andy, you shared earlier about the picture. I was just turning back to it of the little boy. I say it's a little boy, I can't quite tell, with the helmet on. Quite often when we were creating life stories, people might not have photographs, or it can be really difficult to get. So you end up with a more generic image that was on the internet. So I started to say, wow, the ability that potentially, and I've mentioned Polly Kaiser, I don't have shares in her book, had said that digital life story, there is some evidence to actually suggest that it may be even more powerful in triggering memories and enhancing relationships. We started to talk about, actually, this could be a really amazing project. So with that, we were like, okay, how are we going to do this? Because we need money, ultimately, in order to develop it. So we started to talk to other people. We met, and I like to give credit where it's due, because the thing that I said earlier about it's a team is none of this would have happened without a number of other people. And Sheena and I went and spoke to Sam Monday, who was part of the NHS England. They had a particular, within NHS services, there is a move to try and do more things digitally to help support healthcare. So there were pots of money, and we went to her and we said, you know, we're thinking about these two platforms. What do you think? And she was like, she really got it. And she was like saying, obviously she needed to get approval, but I'm willing to support you in that. I'm not sure if the Association of Dementia Studies, so Shirley Evans and Jen Bray, they may be on. We spoke to the association and said, you know, we're wanting to try and develop this project. What do you think? We spoke to Platform Housing, who said, do you know what, this would make such a difference for the people that we're working with. We spoke to Worcestershire Association of Carers, and each person said, do you know what, this would make a difference for our carers supporting people with dementia. Or as Andy said, actually, people with mental health needs, we know that it can support children. Life story work can be used across the lifespan. So we had a lot of support, and our trust, so Herefordshire and Worcester Trust, said we'll fund the Life Stories platform that we'll go on to talk about. Worcester City Council were involved in terms of the Know Your Place platform that I was talking about. And then other people contributed in terms of time and volunteering to support that, as well as giving letters of support. So you can hear my excitement. Tell me if I need to slow down, but that was that first moment of collaboration and coming together and thinking, do you know what? We hope this can really make a difference for people. This is quite a busy slide, and I'm only putting it up briefly just to provide a visual for what I'm talking about. So at the top, you'll see it says Know Your Place. So that's the website that I was talking about, that people, you can see it's a map that people are able to explore and then download images or information about their local area, as well as being able to upload images and information to that area. And then as you come down, the bit that we're here to talk about today was then the second platform, which is I realise I'm touching the screen, sorry all, which is that ability to take life story work and create it into a digital format. And I'll go on to explain about this a bit more. Now, for me, one of the things it was I didn't want to miss was those opportunities to come together, to be able to connect and talk. And Andy, you spoke earlier about the different forms of life story work, and we know there's suitcase stories and ways that enhance connection and belonging that people can be involved in. But also, and it may be a question that people have, is we know that older people and people with dementia are more likely not to be online, not to have access to hardware, to have more difficulties. And therefore, one of the things that we wanted to build into the project, as you can see on here, was training and thinking about resources. So, for example, one of the organisations, Platform Housing, have digital champions, and we spoke about them being able to support, including giving iPads and training or support to the people that were interested in using the platform. So more specifically about the Life Stories platform, as I mentioned, the first one was to be able to create your own life story. I'm often asked whether, because it's on live, is it public? Will other people be able to see it? And no, it isn't. And I'm going to go on to show you it. So it's private and nobody can view it unless you share it. And then I'm going to sound contradictory for somebody that developed a digital life, or what was involved with, sorry, a digital life story platform. I still prefer a book, a physical handheld book. I know environmentally I need to move away from that, but actually for me, potentially it's an and both, not an either or. So what we did was enable, not only is it digital, but that it was something that could be downloaded or printed if that was the person's preference, so that it didn't stop people, or if people didn't have Wi-Fi or wasn't able to connect, that it stopped them from using it. The movie option was because for me, many different ways have been tried when people come into hospital to support. Andy said earlier that the more we know somebody, the better we can meet their needs. And different things have been tried, such as having a This Is Me in somebody's room, or potentially memory boxes that go outside somebody's door, or photographs. One of the things that I wanted to try, with the person's permission and only with what they wanted, or with informed consent from carers, is information that could come up that they were happy with on TV screens. So often if you go into a hospital now, there's a screen, and it might just say, you know, my favorite holiday was Venice in Italy when we went for our anniversary, or I like to be on the beach in Cornwall. Whatever it was that was important to the person. Perhaps likes and dislikes. I quite often say to people that if I do go on to develop dementia, those that know me, like Andy was saying, I like my tea in a thin china cup. I don't like those thick ones. I don't particularly like plastic. Those things, for as long as possible, are really important to me. And then, as I was mentioning, support to be able to use the platform. I won't, Andy has already said about this, but to kind of come back to why life stories is the bit that was already being able to said, that to capture stories, to be able to share those stories, to have those moments of connection, value, belonging, a sense of purpose. I can go on. That bit that I was just being able to say about shared knowledge of yourself and what is important, thinking about the lady that I said who had to be kind to others. I have many stories, and Andy, you'll have to stop me if I go on, but they're just people that come to mind, like an Italian gentleman who used to become distressed when his family left, to the point that they were considering not visiting when he was on the ward, because it was too distressing for them. And we found out about him, and they said he used to hate shopping, and when they'd go shopping, he'd have a little espresso. So what we did as the ward is, when the family visited, they didn't want to lie to him when they went, so it was in that goodbye. So what would happen at the time that they were leaving the ward is, rather than saying goodbye, they would say, we're going shopping. So it was a variation on that, which enabled them to be able to say goodbye and go. And they brought in his favorite coffee and his cup, and what we would do is we'd sit and have all that ready, and then they'd say, oh, we're going shopping. Oh, I hate shopping. And then we'd sit and have a coffee afterwards, which meant that he was still able to they were still able to visit, they were still able to say goodbye, and they were able to have those moments together. And then, as Andy was saying, it allows that continued conversation. I told you I could do stories. So the next story is Ron. So meet Ron. He's the little boy that you can see in yellow above the Worcester Life Stories platform workshop. Ron lived in sheltered accommodation. I've got permission to share this with platform housing, and he was a cheeky chap, as I used to say to him, and he was really a force for life stories. And when I think of Ron's stories, he would tell me about when he met his wife, and she'd have the stockings on. That's how he remembered her. The first time on the bridge that's just by my house, he gave us permission to use his photographs and his story that I'll go on to talk about as we go through. So in terms of developing a platform, I didn't mention earlier, but as well as being funded by the council and the NHS, we also applied for lottery funding, which was supported by the stakeholders. And then as part of that, you agree a timeline. As Andy mentioned, COVID, at one point we thought that we wouldn't go ahead with the project, and that changed. That was Sheena actually who said, we need to find a different way, and we launched online in July 2020, so 4 years ago now. What we did was we wanted it to be as open and as iterative as possible. So you'll notice I speak of an idea, but not what it looked like. And that's because with First One, who were the developers, who also put money to the project, we did a series of workshops which you can go and view. I've kept all the links in that you'll be getting afterwards from Beth. We went and said, this is what we think. What do you think? Then we went back and said, these are some of the ideas that you had. Does it look like what you thought it would in terms of a template of a platform? We then went back, and First One had developed that platform, and we said, this is kind of what it's looking like. What do you think? So it continues, and you can see that to be an iterative process. It was then our stakeholders and as much as we could, people with dementia, testing the platform to see if it worked. I mentioned earlier the Association of Dementia Studies. They spoke in terms of ensuring that it was dementia friendly. So it was thought about in terms of what font did you use, what size, what were the colours, what were the contrast. All those things were considered in the meetings in terms of developing the platform. And then it went live just over 3 years ago in June 2021. So I'm sorry all that I can't see you. I'm missing that. Here is the link, and shortly I'm just going to be showing you in terms of the platform. It's free to all the residents that live within Herefordshire and Worcestershire. Obviously that's the trust that Andy and I both, he works in, I worked in. But I did want to highlight, depending on who was in the audience, that this is a platform that can be bought by other organisations. And we won't have time today because we really wanted an opportunity to talk, but there is a demonstration on the platform that's there. So I'm going to stop sharing. Can I just check in? How are we doing right now?
All good with me, Tash. I don't know if anybody in the audience has any questions at this point. Do you have anything more to present? I think you've got a film to show us, haven't you?
I have. I've got a bit more. I'm just checking in, making sure. I've been talking for a while. I always like to, and I can't see anyone to ask. So is everyone? Oh,
Few
sorry.
people have got their camera on and they all look like they're absolutely fine. Does anybody have anything you'd like to ask Tash or Andy at this point?
No, that's okay. I'm going to show the platform now. If you do, or we didn't put our email addresses on, did we, Andy? But it's, please let us know, and it can obviously come through yourself, Beth, at the dementia community. So let me. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Is it coming up with the bar?
So at the moment you're just logging in, which is fortunately we can't see.
Yeah, I'm pleased about that. I've just got to make sure that.
Someone in our audience, Candy, is saying, could you share the links, please? So they will obviously come to you, Candy, afterwards. I don't know if we've got anything we can put into the chat now. But my colleague Beth Lang will share everything with you guys in the coming days as well.
Okay, so everybody, you're right, all the links are in the presentation, and we can try and put those links in after speaking. So what I've done is I've gone onto the website. You'll be able to follow that link, or you can write into Google life stories Worcestershire, and it'll be the first one that will come up on the search bar. I've logged in, and this is my page. As you can see, I've created my own book, but I'm not as interesting as Ron. So what I wanted to do is, so all I've had to do, if people can see, is click onto the book. This, can you see my mouse moving? Can you see the little hand?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We can. I
Yeah,
can
so
anyway.
that's the front cover. So if you ever get lost, you can always go back to the front cover. The one area I don't have permission for Ron was to show his This Is Me. As I mentioned, it was developed for people originally for coming onto the ward, and what we wanted to do and sought permission for was to include that information, so you weren't duplicating. So within there is the This Is Me, so my likes and dislikes, my what I prefer to be called, and so forth. You can then create chapters. So here, and we won't have time, I can come back and then show people. You can look to see the different chapters of Ron's life. And what I wanted to do was go to the photo that you saw earlier on the workshop. So this is Ron. And sorry, has a black bar come up?
It did
No, it's all
briefly,
right.
but it's gone again.
Okay, no, that's okay. So one of the things that's different for life stories, digital life stories, is that you're able to do it in real time, in the moment. So Ron has passed away now. His daughter Maggie has given me permission to keep sharing this. But if Ron and I were sitting here and he wanted to tell me a little bit more, I'd be able to edit and then start to add more information. I won't, because this is Ron, into the page, so we can do it straight away. The other bit that is different for a digital life story is it allows you that ability to record audio. So this is Ron.
Ron Baldwin at the age of 11, taken at St Paul's School, one of the first school photographs I had taken, and it's a photograph I've always loved because it.
One of the things that people often tell me is that it goes to what you were talking about, Andy, in terms of palliative care. When I've shown this platform before, people have also shared that they wish that they'd recorded the person's voice, and that they can't remember what they sounded like anymore. And that's been something that people have found. Sorry, I can feel myself feeling a bit emotional on that, but it's something that people have taken great comfort from. You also have an ability to be able to share, and that you have that ability to choose what level. So you can see here that I'm classed as a manager. That means that I'm able to make changes to the book, but you can send the book to other people where you say, I'd like you to know about me, but I don't want you to be able to make any changes about myself. And it would be there, so you'd be able to send them. So right now I could click on this button, and then I could say, Andy, I know you wanted to see Ron's book. I can put you as a reader, because it's been agreed that I'm managing this. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there's the ability to print the book, or to play the book, or to send it as a video. The final thing, if I come back to here and I go into to mine, the other thing that we're able to do is to upload videos from YouTube. So one of the things, in fact, I'll go to this one, is that's me when I got married 2 days ago, or maybe a few more years. Our song was Your Song by Elton John. So potentially one of the things with a digital life story is that you can have not only the voice recording and the photos, but then you can play important music. Finally, it goes back to the thing that I was saying. Potentially, for all people, it can be difficult to navigate platforms. There's a help button that gives written information, and then at the bottom there are videos that tell you a little bit about each area so that you're able to follow them. I realise that's a real whistle stop of the actual platform. I've shared too many stories. I've got to get quicker. I won't show the video of Ron. It's in the link. I'll give some thoughts and then I'll hand over to Andy before we take a few questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I just wanted to say, actually, Tash, having seen the little demo of the platform, I just love the fact you can have the voice recording, and I would have loved to have had that for my dad. You're quite right. We often don't record the person's voice and then they've died, and we can no longer do that. And to add the music as well, the wedding song, that's just lovely.
Thanks, Beth. Do you know, and it has, and you can't see the hairs, because that's the bit for me where Ron and Maggie, if people watch the it says thoughts on the platform, Maggie talks about she's got a dad, but the only bit she's got of her mum is her interrupting Ron to say, oh yeah, you're nattering on again. So she's got this little snippet that means a lot to her.
Yeah, I've got a couple of old cassettes of my dad, because he liked writing. He always wanted to be a published author. I've got a couple of old cassettes of him speaking, and I'm just too scared to send them to anyone, to have them turned into digital or CD or something, because if they lose them, I haven't got them, though I've got no means to currently play them because I have no cassette player. So it's just one of those things, you kind of cling on to it because it's the only thing you've got. But yeah, that was fabulous.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. That's sorry that I'm
It's
with you in that
interesting,
moment.
isn't it? I know
Sorry,
people
Andy.
I just when you were talking about that, it made me think of people when the Facebook accounts go after someone's passed away, how that's actually quite traumatic, because so much information is held about you, and you can't access, or someone you love, and you can't access that. So there's something quite special about and powerful about holding on to some of, in some ways, those memories. How best you do that?
Yeah, no, you're right, Andy. So if I go back to the slideshow, I should have remembered that I can talk, even with timing myself on life stories, Beth. It's because it matters, I think. These are the thoughts, just briefly. So again, there's permission. Ron and Maggie talk about the experience of using the Life Story platform, including what would you say to people if they weren't sure about it. We don't have time for me to talk about the things I would do differently about the platform, but they're there. So it's a big commitment. It takes more time than you think. And if COVID hadn't got in the way, I'd have liked to have thought we'd have had more service user involvement throughout. But the bit I wanted to say is don't give up. If you're somebody in a service wondering about this, if we can help you in any way, I think the difference it can make. And then that quite nicely leads me into you, Andy, talking about what we're starting to see by using the Life Story platform on the ward.
Thanks there. I don't know if you wanted to go on to wanted to go on to the next slide, or whether. So as Tash was saying, I mean, it's wonderful how much time, and it's such a person-centered approach, and such a project that's kernel of an idea is developed into something really quite powerful and useful. And Tash and Aaron led a piece of work in terms of evaluating its use on one of our wards, our dementia wards. And there's a trainee psychologist, Antonia, also was involved. And there's a great paper being published around that now, so people can see it. But we've concluded the link within this, but we can send it round on the Journal of Dementia Care. And they conducted some interviews from staff. They've also looked at some observations in terms of during and before doing the life stories work. It was really interesting. I think there was already a This Is Me offer within the ward by occupational therapy, and they were involved in terms of talking about whether people would also be interested in doing a digital life story. And Aaron, and it's a shame he wasn't here today because he's got some really interesting reflections, but he was involved in really kind of then taking a lead. So talking to families, were they interested in setting up a book? If the families wanted to set up a book, then they could add a staff member, one of the Woodland Ward staff members to that account. However, if they didn't want to, Woodland Ward could create their own account as well. So there were two different ways we used that within the organisation. And so it might be worth, if you're thinking about doing something similar, just that process of how you go along and the best way of doing that. I don't know if you want to go on to the next slide. These were some of the scores. So there was a tool that they used for observations around, and it comes up in a number of different domains. The one that they particularly looked at here was about affect or mood. And so there were two items around affect or mood. One was positive experiences. So do you notice some positive experiences about mood, visual, verbal, excitement, did they look like the person was having some of those positive interactions, and also whether they were having some negative interactions. And we scored those, and the maximum you could get was 10. That would be positive and no negative. And you can see here for most of the patients, there's quite a considerable change during those observations when someone is doing life stories to beforehand. A couple the other way around, but for the majority, it was quite a change. And then because Aaron's not here, we put a few quotes up just to try and, I mean, he would have done a much better job of it, but these were some of the quotes, and I'll just read them out from staff. So we don't really know the patients. We get a handover why they're here and their diagnosis, but to dig deeper into their lives and learn the little things about them, like their lives or hobbies, it's nice because it can build rapport. I'm quite proud to work with it and ask questions. I think you learn a lot from somebody. I look at it like we're all people, we're all the same. And one day, I'll be old as well. It's nice to talk to someone and learn how they went through life. I think it helps, the pictures help. And I think that's such a really nice thing, because often people can be seen as someone different within a ward, or particularly a psychiatric or mental health hospital. And actually this part of doing this is just seeing that person as someone anyone else could be. So I think that is such a powerful thing in terms of when you have a really busy environment, and I'm sure people work in care homes or have something similar, you can get really bogged down in your tasks. And this allows someone to dedicate. This is actually a really important activity that improves people's care. I think this is the other ones. I think they feel more like a person as well when you start taking interest. And this was someone who's interesting saying it was good to have some more recent photos of them. If it's a life story, we should include their life now and they're still living. And that goes back to capturing some of the voice. So, it's a bit like the idea is you can't enjoy a book until you've read the final chapter, because then you know what's happened, isn't it? So, okay, and just the last slide, because I'm rare, we probably talked for more. Tasha's had a lot more amusing anecdotes than myself, I have to say. I'll have to up my game next time. So what next? So we're trying to continue and look at moving not just within dementia, within our mental health wards, but our community hospitals and care homes, and for patients at hospice care and end of life. I think the thing she mentioned right at the beginning was planning around training. I think there's something really important about that, because we don't have the capacity to go out and do this all around the county, but we can see lots of benefits. And so how do we have enough to get people up and using this platform safely? And that's what we're trying to do at the moment, is is how to support other parts of our organisation to see the benefit, and we can support them to get up and running. So, and there's lots of really interesting and ways of doing this, and developing some more practical guidance about how we're doing that. I know when I talked to Sue a while ago, other areas have used it within community hospitals, and they've used it with volunteers. So it's not a professional piece of work, you know, it doesn't need someone with a nursing or psychology or social work qualification to do this. It's a lovely piece of work that lots of people can engage with. So I won't say anything more, but I'll leave it open to people's questions. And I think having a look at some of the videos is really interesting and really key. And finding out more. Tash is a bit of a superstar in terms of, you know, her you know, this piece of project and how she's taken it forward to support people with dementia and making it widely available as well. So I can't thank her enough for taking a lead on this.
Oh, thank you both so much. That was just fabulous. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Tash. It's been great to hear your passion about this subject. Lots I'd like to ask you. We haven't got very much time, so I'm going to have to put it open to the audience. But before I do, just apologies. It was, of course, Herefordshire and not Hertfordshire. So I do apologise for that. And thank you for the correction, Andy. It's all my H's. What can I say? It's a warm afternoon. Anybody got any questions for Tash or Andy? Come off mute, or you can type in the chat. Pop your hand up if you'd like to talk.
I'd like to ask a question if possible. So just thinking about, whilst it's not being delivered necessarily by professionals, did you support whoever was doing it with people with any kind of reflective group or supervision or anything like that, just to pick up where there might have been issues in speaking with people?
Do you want me to answer that, Andy?
Go on then.
Do you want me to answer it?
Sure. Have you got some thoughts around it?
Yeah. So thank you very much for that great question. As you know, I can chat. So and happy to follow up afterwards. Yes. So a number of different ways that we did it. So we went out to digital champions. So I think I mentioned that earlier in terms of platform housing, Age UK, different ones. So we kind of a domino effect, if you like, went and shared our knowledge with people in terms of the training, as well as that. Aaron on the ward, and tell me if I haven't answered your question. Sorry, a train went past. Training is one thing, but quite often what we found is people need, and this is why champions and people are really helpful, to be able to come back and say, well, I tried what you said, but it didn't quite work, or this happened, what would you do? So Aaron, I'm sorry you don't get to meet him, was kind of the conduit for that. So he'd really support. So we looked at a number of different ways. Andy, however, is right. If you're thinking about that, so it's thinking about the support to be able to support people to do it. Once it was built to be intuitive, and people say once you've started it and you feel familiar with it, you can really see that. But like all of us, you go onto a new website and sometimes you're just not sure and you want to call someone. I know I do.
I think I was thinking more about.
Oh, sorry.
I think there was something about how to gain confidence if you're pulling up. Is there a forum or some kind of peer support group around using this and troubleshooting problems?
Oh,
At the
sorry.
moment, we don't have one of those within Health and Care Trust, but I think that, you know, I'm not against sort of doing something like that. I guess it would be trying to work out what the scope would that be and how we could do that. You know, I mean, if there's a sort of, you know, it sounds a bit grand saying community practice, doesn't it? But there's something around, you know, how do you support the continued delivery of it? I mean, I don't know. You know, I'm happy to have those conversations. I don't know, Tash,
yeah, I'd missed the point. I'm glad you came in on that. So a community of practice, you know, I'm thinking, oh, that sounds a great idea. The yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much. We are kind of out of time. Does anyone have another very, very quick question if they want to ask anything? I do note in the chat, Michelle is asking about evaluation. She has left the conversation, so perhaps we cover that in terms of maybe what we send out afterwards. So her question is, I was going to ask about evaluation, if you can share any links to reports or papers published. So I think then we'll tackle that afterwards. And Evie, you've got your hand up.
Hi, yeah, just quickly, sorry. So I work in Suffolk in NSFT Trust in Reach Outreach team, and we do life stories quite a lot of the time. You mentioned that there is a way to kind of purchase the digital platform. How do I go about that? How would I go about that?
Evie, if you are willing to give your information to Beth, I'm aware we're on a recorded, she can pass it to me, and then I can put you in touch with the developer, so they'll come out and they'll show it to you and then talk you through potential packages. Sounds like I'm selling, so I'm trying not to. They'll come and then take from there, but it'd be brilliant. Yeah, I think obviously I'm going to care about it being involved, so but yeah, we can sort that for you.
Amazing, thank you.
Super, thank you. I think I'm going to have to wrap up just because we're over time, and I'm sure lots of people do need to leave. Candy, thank you. You would like to hear about purchase options. You've sent me your email address. That's great. Thank you. Evie, if you want to send me a private message, or Beth Lang a private message, we probably do have your sign up details as well. I'm sure we do from when you signed up before for the webinar. So it's just really for me to say, Andy and Tash, thank you so much. I'm so sorry we're out of time, but thank you for sharing such a lovely uplifting session. Stories are everything, aren't they? We've all got them, and just capturing them and enjoying them and just just reminiscing and all of that, just absolutely fabulous. So thank you both so much. Just to let everyone know about our next webinar, so Objects as a Superpower, the Importance of Material Citizenship, is on Tuesday the 9th of July, 2 till 3, and my colleague Beth Lang will pop a link in the chat. It is also on our website as well, if you would like to go and book from there as well. Super, thank you, Beth. And we will capture the what people have sent direct messages that you've asked for your details to be shared for purchasing as well. So that's super. Thank you all so much, and thank you, Andy, and thank you, Tash.